Hi everyone, it's Adam Cockburn. Welcome to this review of the Wellington market data, Wellington real estate market, of course. We were looking at the numbers for the month of April 2022, comparing it to 12 months ago and 24 months ago. April 2020, of course, slightly unusual month because that was smack bang in the middle of nationwide lockdown. So in many instances, that makes no sense, that comparison, but let's get into it. Overall, we got values in Wellington, underlying values, lower than they were a year ago. So any growth that we've seen since 12 months ago has been totally eroded, and we have fallen down below that level again. We have more supply for any May than we've seen since 2015. Buyers, if you're out there and if you can raise the money to purchase, do not wait, get in amongst it, take advantage of these conditions because they will not last forever. Let's get into the detail, looking first at median sales price. April 2022, 930,000 versus 868,000 same time a year ago. Now that's an increase of 7%, which is counter to what I've just said in the headline there, that values have fallen. But remember, this is median sale price. It's not necessarily reflective of the underlying values. It is deeply influenced by the mix of properties that are sold in the month. So if the number of properties that have sold at above average sort of value is higher than 50%, then that will drag the number up. If it's more cheaper properties that are being sold, it will drag the number down. It doesn't necessarily reflect underlying values. But interesting to note, the last couple of months, it has been sitting around the early sort of 900,000s, and that is definitely a step down from what we saw in the sort of 4 or 5 months prior to that, where it was mainly in the high 900,000s. But as I said before, the best indicator to underlying values is the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand House Price Index, and that is what we will look at next. And this is painting a fairly stable, sort of consistent picture here. Across the whole of New Zealand in the last 3 months, values have fallen. In Wellington, we're really leading the charge, and values have fallen in Wellington more than in any other main centre. In the last 1 month, the Wellington region has seen values fall by 3%. In the last 3 months, by 6%. Now, really interestingly indeed, over the last 12 months, values have still fallen by about 4% or thereabouts. And if you look in particular at Wellington City, you'll see the numbers are actually even more extreme than that. So among New Zealand, the Wellington region is leading the charge, and among the Wellington region, Wellington City is leading the charge. And so over the last 1 month, Wellington City down nearly 6%. That's a big drop. Again, month to month, these numbers can bounce around a little bit, especially on that more granular basis. So perhaps more instructive to look at the 3-month term, but on that basis, Wellington City down by nearly 9% compared to 6% for Wellington region and 3.5% for New Zealand. So you can see Wellington City really is kind of leading the charge here. And over the last year, Wellington City prices down by 9%. So that's over the last year. Now, of course, since 12 months ago, prices went up. They fell again, back down to the same level as 12 months ago, and they have fallen even further since then indeed. So a pretty clear and dramatic picture being painted here. Certainly values are retreating, and they seem to have been retreating earliest and fastest in Wellington, and earliest and fastest indeed in Wellington City. Now, if we look at history, what's going to happen in the next 3, 6, 12 months? History would suggest prices won't fall an awful lot further. If prices do fall further, the vendors just tend to not sell. They tend to hold on to their properties and just keep them instead of realising that loss. The exception to that rule would be if we start to see a lot of job losses. And of course, we're seeing record low unemployments. People are not losing their jobs. People, for the most part, can't afford to keep their properties. So if they're faced with a choice of either selling for quite a bit less than I could have realised 12 months ago or 6 months ago, and keeping, a lot more will decide to keep. So again, if history repeats itself, and there's certainly no guarantee it will, but what tends to have happened in the past is values haven't fallen by an awful lot. So if they do continue to fall, my prediction is they won't fall by an awful lot more. So if we look here at the graph for the Wellington House Price Index, you can see there the yellow line is the 3-month the drop in values over the 3 months. So for the last couple of months, we've seen reasonably consistent falls of sort of 6% or thereabouts for the last 3 months, reasonably consistently. So moving on now to the supply side of the equation, new listings coming to the market in Wellington, and we're seeing a reasonably stable picture compared to 12 months ago. So 715 new listings in April 2022 versus 725 12 months ago. So in the last few months, we have seen an increase in the number of new listings coming to market compared to 12 months prior. In April this year, we're seeing about the same compared to 12 months previous. Compared to 24 months ago, April 2020, not a useful comparison because that was lockdown month. So we got 103 listings come to the market in that month, but that was basically when the market was closed. So kind of irrelevant. So compared to 12 months ago, about the same. And that is a different kind of a trend than what we've seen for the last 3 to 6 months, where we've seen an increase in the supply coming to the market. So that's an interesting change. It will be interesting to see if that is continued in the next few months. On the sales side of things, 515 properties sold in April 2022 versus 787 a year ago and 122, only 122 2 years ago. But again, that was lockdown month, so let's throw that result out. So really 515 this April compared to 787 a year ago, and that is a big drop. That's for every 3 properties that had sold a year ago, we were only selling 2 out of 3. So it's a drop of 35%. There's no question that is quite a big fall. So again, you look at the graph there, you see the red line has been trending definitely downwards. That's the 3-month moving average. The 6-month moving average, definitely trending down from the highs where we were at up around that 800 mark in late 2020 as we came out of lockdown. Since then, it has been dropping away consistently, and this is the first time the moving average has fallen down below 600 since we were in lockdown. So this really does show that this is a dramatic result. There really are not many properties being sold compared to what's normal in the Wellington region. The only time we've sold less is when the market was pretty much closed. So while we have the same number of properties coming to the market as we saw a year ago, we are seeing a dramatic reduction in the number of properties sold compared to a year ago. And so the natural result of that is a continuing increasing amount of supply on the market. So how long is it taking to sell? A long time. In summary, 48 days in April 2022 versus 30 a year ago and 31 2 years ago. So this is a dramatic increase in the duration it's taking to sell. Again, look at the graph there. The blue line indicates the monthly results. For the last 4 months, we've been in the high 40s in terms of number of days to sell, with the exception of March, where we were in the low 40s. But the only time we have seen properties taking longer to sell than sort of 48, 49 days is when the market was in lockdown. Again, April, May, sort of, May, I think it is. Yeah, May, as we came out of lockdown, where it took kind of around the 55 days. So we're getting towards that level, and the market is, of course, not locked down. Casting your eye across that graph, you'll see this is the longest it's taken to sell property in Wellington, with the exception of that one lockdown month, since I started collecting this data way back in early 2015. So it certainly is somewhat more sluggish out there. It's taking a lot longer to sell properties than we've seen for quite some time. And this, of course, leads to inventory, and the natural conclusion is inventory will be increasing under these circumstances, and that is exactly what we're seeing. In fact, 21 weeks worth of supply, and what this measures, of course, is how many weeks would it take to sell every property that's on the market today if properties continue to sell at the same rate. 21 weeks is, if I'm correct, 6 weeks higher, 6 weeks longer than the long-term average of 15 weeks for Wellington. So it is no question in buyer's market territory. And indeed, you look at that graph, you'll see that never since I've started collecting this data in March 2015 have we ever seen inventory at this level, 21 weeks. Way back in March 2015, we were at 17 weeks, and indeed we got to 17 weeks in March 2022. and so we've smashed straight past those previous highs over the last 8 years or 7 years or so, up to 21 weeks. So this is a long time. Compared to a year ago, we were only at 5 weeks. So that's 4 times the amount of inventory than we saw a year ago, and well over twice what we saw 2 years ago, April 2020, where we had 9 weeks. So this is a dramatic and clear trend emerging here in terms of the amount of inventory on the market. This, of course, is fantastic news for those of you who are buyers out there who can actually transact, who have actually got the money. What about the number of listings on Trade Me? Again, a similar sort of a picture than we've seen in the last few months. 2,953 as of a couple of days ago when I put this data together, compared to 1,186 12 months ago and 1,634 2 years ago. So that's 149%, roughly 150% as to where we were at a year ago. So that's for every 4 listings that were on the market on Trade Me a year ago, we're now seeing 10. Again, consistent picture, fantastic news for buyers. There is an abundance of choice out there for those of you who are buyers, so certainly get in amongst it and take advantage of these conditions. You'll see there from the graph again, the number of listings there approaching 3,000, not quite as high as we saw last month, and this is the seasonal effect coming through. You get a lot of new listings coming to the market in spring. You don't get quite as many as we approach winter, and so for the next few months we might see the number of listings stabilize for a period of time. This is not. This is just a seasonal thing. It's not suggesting that the market is, that the worm is turning back the other way, or that it's reverting back to a seller's market necessarily. It's just that in spring there are more listings tend to come to the market, and in winter there tend to be fewer. So we tend to get in normal circumstances you would get listing volumes reduce. So it'll be interesting to see if they do indeed fall in the next few months as we're into winter, or whether they're just stabilised. And indeed, yeah, that's a fairly consistent picture that we've seen in the last few months, roughly 150% higher than we saw 12 months ago. So in summary, folks, median prices are up slightly, but underlying values in Wellington region are down compared to a year ago, and indeed in Wellington City down by quite a bit at about 9% compared to 12 months ago. New listings about the same level as we saw a year ago, but sales volumes have gone down significantly compared to a year ago, down by approximately a third at 35%. So same number of new listings coming in, but a lot fewer sales going out. Duration to sell is up significantly at 48 days. Massive increase compared to a year ago and 2 years ago. Inventory number of weeks worth of supply also up significantly, 320% higher than a year ago. More trade listings than we've seen in any May since 2015. There's no doubt we're in a buyer's market, folks. If you're a seller out there, it means you are having to work harder to attract the attention of the buyers. If you're a buyer out there and you can transact, I would really, really encourage you, do not wait for conditions to get any better. Get in amongst it, take advantage of these conditions while you can. I promise you they will not last forever. If you do need any advice, you want to sing out, have a chat about your personal circumstances, your property, free appraisal and so on, please feel free to sing out. It's Adam here at Lowe Co. You know how to get me. Otherwise, thanks for checking in. See you next month.